Hello everyone, and welcome back to Dominion 5 with Kirby 1. We're going to take a break from your regularly scheduled programming in order to showcase an upcoming game that I'm about to be starting. Videos will come probably in the not particularly near future, as I'm still working on Accidental Ascension 4, which is still also an ongoing game in and of itself. Perhaps if I get some free time under my belt, I'll be able to do something like 2 series at a time. We will see about that. In any case, this upcoming game is going to be an All-Stars game. Now, if you are a follower of General Confusion's channel, he made videos of, and I think is still making videos of, Dominion's All-Stars 1. This is Dominion All-Stars 2A. Again, this particular series, just like the Accidental Ascension series, gains such popularity from the notoriety acquired from General Confusion's videos that it was so big that they had to be broken down into 2 different games of, I think, 13 players in each. So quite a large following. We've got a lot of different nations. I'm not particularly following what people in All-Stars B have been doing, but All-Stars A is getting a little crazy. We're about to be finalizing the mod and or Summer's putting together the mod and finalize all that and start the game up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to showcase my own nation, give some general explanation as to why I made some of the picks that I made, and explain some of the lesser known mechanics that I went to great lengths to acquire. However, I don't think that my particular game was, or my particular picks were necessarily the best ones. Okay. In addition to that, we're also going to showcase one random special other person's nation. Obvious cut is obvious, but I had to go look up who this was. So this is the nation that Sauron put together. I'm not entirely sure if I can grasp the general aim that he was going for with this nation, but that's just my own fault. I was pretty focused on my own picks and didn't really pay too much attention to other people's strategy choices unless they made it blatantly obvious on Discord. But we've got wolf herds here, so these are going to be free spawn summoners. We've got monks, which can be recruited outside forts as well for Dominion researchers. Raktapatas, this was actually his first pick, and they are reanimators. Now he is playing Hinnom from the flag, so there's a bunch of lore that hasn't been 100% solidified, but this is probably going to be for, let's say, giant skeleton summoning for reanimations, because he's using Hinnom's nation plus their gems that they get. So he'll get their national reanimated skeletons, which are giants. He also took Flagrant Tyrant for super awesome, super combatant chassis, just short of Lestragonian Tyrants, which somebody else took. But he didn't take the Middle Age Flagrant spell that you can do to boost these guys up and give them all sorts of deformities and special powers. So that's unfortunate for him, but he did take also Shard Guards, Elephants for expansion, Crossbow, a cheap crossbow, yeah, just 11 resources, 9 recruitment points, that's pretty good, and also Dark Vision, cool. He took some underwater stealthy units, amphibious units, and Tempest Warriors, very, very cheap with magic weapons, and Hastadas to round that out. He also took Mystics, with a lot of magic diversity, and Anaries, which are great communions, and then She-Lords. Sorry, I'm really not gonna be able to explain his general strategy thinking in this. So yeah, I'm just showcasing that. As you saw, I'm only picking myself and one other person because General Confusion's video also didn't really go into everyone in depth. There's a lot to cover, a lot of random stuff. So we're just going to be using this as a test game. I put it on random so that it wouldn't. Oh, hey, look, Earth Serpent. Woohoo! And so that I can showcase some of my mechanics playing as human, so I can have a little bit of control over their actions, and then make it random so that it wasn't you know, like me singling out someone who I specifically despise and want to kill off. So this is my pick, Baywatch memes of the 80s, going off of the Baywatch sort of motif. I didn't really do a whole lot of lore specific for the units. That would be a lot of work, and I don't think I really have the time for it to put the brain power into that, so we're just going to leave it as is. But yeah, full disclaimer, I haven't really watched Baywatch that much, and I'm not that old enough to actually have like personal knowledge of 80s memes. I mean, I was born in the 80s, but like not old enough to remember them super well. Anyways, let's just go ahead and get into explaining why I picked what I did. So my nation that I picked is Phaeacia. A couple of reasons why I did that: for their spells that they can get, their national spells, because everybody kept their national spells in addition to being able to pick 2 that were outside of their national spell picks. And also they have black ships for sailing in Dominion for any unit. So I can have Sailing Knights of Avalon, I can have Sailing Scorpions, I can have Sailing Huron Priests, I can have Sailing Royal Malkies. Everybody gets sailing, as long as it's from Dominion to Dominion. So I have to have my Dominion in both the province I'm leaving from and the province I'm going to. Exactly the same as Phaeacia. In addition to that, I also get free spawn units from events. I get free spawn Phlegrin Giants from the early age, Meconid Giants. So that'll be fun every year. So not a whole lot, but you get a Locos Commander as well as some Meconid Giants. And then last but not least, all of their coastal forts get a bonus to gold income. All of them. And your capital fort is a slightly better fort, and also you get this gold apple tree site, which decreases unrest in my capital by 5 per turn. So I have no sacred troops. Everybody can be recruited as many times as I want, except for the Scorpions. The Xibalban Scorpions specifically, the largest ones, are limited recruitment 10. There are a number of limited recruitment units in the game. A bunch of the Cyclops and giant units, and also the Hydras from I think all ages of Saramatian and Pythium are limited recruitment. So anyways, a couple of limited recruitment ones. So I can't like spam these out 100 like a lot like you can with the smaller Scorpions, but they're incredibly resource efficient. And the reason why resource efficiency is important to me is because my strategy is to build forts on every coastal province, and not just forts, but citadels on every single coastal province. Now, because of that, I won't be getting a whole lot of fort income, resource income, but I will be getting a crap ton of gold and also a crap ton of recruitment points. So I expect to be able to max out on 10 for 10 Scorpions out of every province that I get, plus being able to recruit Herdmen and these guys, Andrales, because they are also coastal fort recruitment. Herdmen I got because Van Heers were taken. I probably would have had Sacreds then, but Van Heers were taken, and these are basically vanilla light Van Heers and not Sacred. So they're good in terms of attack density and damage output, but not as good. And so there's just sort of meh for my backup filler units if I need to. And I can't recruit Knights of Avalon in every province. These are just fort capital only. So these guys are a good backup for Knights of Avalon to recruit in forts if I need better land units. Knights of Avalon are just the premier cavalry. Morvark Knights are better, but you can't spam them out as much as you can these guys. If you max out production of resources in your capital, specifically if you have a citadel, which I'm going to, you can get a lot of these guys. And these guys are not one-on-one as good as Morvark Knights, but 2-on-1, 3-on-1, yeah, they can take them. And so spamming these guys out of my capital every turn, plus 4 of these guys can reliably clear out basically any PD or any indie province, and 10 of these guys can clear out everything, including thrones, including like most level 1 and level 2 thrones with mages in them, because they will just burn through elementals with their alicorns. They will burn through skeleton spam, and even knights going up into knight provinces. These guys can just chew through them. Barbarians, they have high defense skill against. Barbarians would give them a bit of a problem, but still high defense skill. So these guys will be my expanders, and late game also just a line of these guys rushing rear will probably just wreck people's day. Androleths were sort of a little bit of a strange pick. But there are a number of reasons why I took them. First of all, their protection is semi-decent. They have high gold cost, but like I said, my strategy expects to have lots of gold, so I'm okay with that. And recruitment points, again, I expect to have a lot of recruitment points. I can recruit them in any coastal province. They have an underwater ranged attack, and they have 2 attacks, both of which are specifically designed to be able to be used better underwater, because piercing damage is better than slashing and bludgeoning damage underwater, and tentacles are actually unscripted damage, so they're not piercing, slashing, or bludgeoning, and they're armor piercing. Now their attack skill is rather low, but they have 2 attacks, and they're size 2, which means that you're getting an attack density of 6 out of every square, which should make up for the underwater, low attack skill. And underwater, you don't really have a whole lot of high defense units unless you're going up against like underwater indie cavalry. Plus, just based on the fact that I took Phaeacia and there are no underwater nations in the game, I've sort of intimidated other people out of wanting to go underwater. People have their underwater picks, but they're not going to be able to reliably fight an underwater war against a dedicated opponent. So with these guys as my frontline shield units, also firing Mind Blasts at everyone as they come across the field, then with also my mages, a couple of whom can go underwater, these guys will be can be water 3 underwater with water power, can go up to water 4. And these sirens going underwater, they become water 2 instead of air 1, water 1. So that can also give them water power and get up to water 3. So I can put out water elementals really, really well as well. So I'm fairly confident in being able to win underwater wars with this strategy. So that was my reasoning for picking these guys. Alright, now let's get into the commander setup. Now, I picked an assassin, but everybody picked assassins in this game. Assassin is sort of the Dominion's all-star meme. Everybody picks assassins or seducers or somebody that does assassination attacks, but these guys are actually not going to be my primary assassination and assassination defense people. I can make them, and I can make 3 of them because they're recruitment 1 from my citadels, but I probably won't be doing that a whole lot. The reason I wanted this particular assassin, which is the late age Marignan assassin, is because he has sailing. Now with Phaeacia, the vanilla Phaeacia, you start with a sailing scout, and you always want to make the sailing scout your prophet. And the reason is because a stealthy sailing commander will sail to the provinces all around the coast of where your capital is and spread your dominion there so that your army can follow and clear those provinces. That's why I picked that guy. I probably will have like only 1 of these guys and not a whole lot more of them. Magisters was actually my first pick. I think I was a little bit in a rush to do that. They're cool. They're really, really cool, but not as cool as I thought they would be, and I probably won't be having a lot of these guys either. You get random magic paths. It says 1 guaranteed. It's not actually 1 guaranteed because you can whiff on both of these 50% chances, and then they have no magic paths, but they can still be spies and scouts and leadership 10, so that's okay. But I really took them for the Mason, and I had to get a Mason like really, really early on before everyone else took Masons, but it turns out not really that many people took Masons. Anyone who wanted citadels basically just went into the late age and picked a late age nation. So I guess meh. That was a little bit of a silly idea, but oh well. And there were other Mason units that I could have picked from that would have had higher magic paths, but would have been more gold expensive. So I don't know. He's cool, but I don't think I should have had him be my first pick. My first pick should have been the pan that I wanted. I wound up having to take this pan, and this pan is the middle-aged pan, and I say he's the worst pan. Not the worst. I think, in my opinion, late-age pan is the worst, specifically just in terms of magic diversity, and also late-age pan does not get monster summoning of Menaids, but early-age pan gets less earth but a blood path, and I think, in my opinion, that is more desirable than a 10% chance blood, because right now I don't really have any blood that is guaranteed in my nation, so I'm going to be pretty low on blood magic in this game, unfortunately, but it is what it is, and at least I got a pan that gives me Dominion monster summoning, because that's what I wanted. I wanted Dominion monster summoning. And honestly, that's another reason why I took Onishugo too, because they're going to free spawn Oni chaff. Yes, they're also good thugs, and I can make great use of that as well, but I only took it for the Oni monster summoner. Just going to be honest there. I have a lot of Death 2 and Death 3 mages. Huron Priest is another one, and he's going to be great. He's basically going to be my battle mage. Well, one of my 2 battle mages. But in my opinion, after playing Nazca for upwards of 50 turns now in Accidental Ascension, in my opinion, Huron Priests are actually better than Koya too. Koya have a lot of good things going for them, but what Koya do not have is Koya do not have an air random. And air randoms are, with Death 2, are pretty huge, and also Earth, because air and Earth means you can forge a bunch of air-earth magic items, including Stonebird and stuff like that. And air and death means you can spawn corpse constructs. And once you get the tech for the corpse construct items, you can get a lot of corpse constructs for 1 air gem. And that is super great. And then late game, once you've got high evocation, you throw a skull staff on the Huron Priests, and they can do Wailing Winds, they can do Winds of Death, and so Koyas just can't do that. Plus they're slow to recruit, and these guys are not, and they're cheaper, so they still have Mummify. So just in general, I like Huron Priests better than Koyas. So I was pretty happy to be able to get this guy. I also took Sauromancers. Now Sauromancers I took for a number of reasons. I get the I get higher death. I get death fire crosspath, which allows me to get skulls of fire, which can bring me up to fire 2. And then I also get astral access, which can give me fire astral, and then that allows me to get Hesperides, which are my national summon. And Hesperides are going to be a lot of fun when I can get them out, because you barely ever get them out if you're playing regular Phaeacia, unless you take a pretender specifically designed for that, because there's no fire astral, there's no easy fire astral access. You need fire 3 and astral 1. And Mooch Cools. Now these guys have a lot of different things going for me. They're amphibious, and they have magic leadership, and they have 40 leadership. So they're going to be backup commanders. They can go underwater for me with my Androleths. They can even, because they have gift of water breathing, they could even take Knights of Avalon underwater if I wanted to. They have pretty awesome cross paths. They can get Death 2 also. They can get Earth 2. They can throw in a Nature in there, and they can get Water 3. Now, Water Earth will be able to get me a bunch of the cave summons if there are any caves nearby. And Water Death will be able to get me another national spell, the spell that a spell that I picked. Because the 2 spells that I picked were Contact Boar of Carnutes and Summon Aoni. Aoni I picked because it's a scalable summon with water, with higher water. So I just throw water on there on this guy, and I can get them for pretty cheap. Arguably not that cheap, but pretty cheap. And so I needed a water gem dump because I have water in my national site. And I needed a water gem dump for summons, so that was the spell that I took. In addition to that, I only have chaos power, and this nation is going to have chaos. It just is. I'm going to be taking it for both these guys and these guys, and I'll explain why with the Sirens in a bit. So that was all my reasoning for that. I think these are going to be a pretty good backup battle mage as well. But I don't really have a whole lot of other reasons besides what I told you for why I took these guys. But there you go. That was sort of my reasoning behind it. Pans, I explained to you. They also have Beastmaster, which will help lead my Scorpions and any other summons that I get. Boar of Carnutes, I can also lead them as well with Beastmaster. And they're going to free spawn Meneids. Another sort of backup, well, I told you already, the backup plan is to just have as many units as I can that free spawn stuff. So Pan's free spawn stuff, Onishugo free spawn stuff, I get Boar of Carnutes, which free spawn stuff. Royal Malkeys can take slaves, but that would be a super expensive way to get slaves. But basically I just wanted random crap free spawn stuff that I got that were essentially not skeletons. And my cap only recruitment is Royal Malkeys. These guys are going to be super expensive. I'm not going to have a lot of them. They're basically sight searchers and maybe late game super high magic combat magic casters. But yeah, I'm not really going to have a lot of them. I don't have a whole lot of good ways to get communions, high boosted communions. There was a lot going on, and I sort of lost track of a bunch of different rambling ideas that I had about how I wanted this nation to go, and along the way I just sort of forgot to take a bunch of cheap effective communion slaves, so that's not really going to be a big part of my strategy. Yeah, and they don't get Reanimator Priest as a tag, because Reanimator Priest goes with Nazca for any undead priest unit. Otherwise, you don't actually have Reanimator Priest if you are taking these units outside of Nazca. They can still summon slaves, and they summon Hatun Runa, which are the flying slave whatchamacallums, Calamites, or Nazcanites, I guess. But like I said, very expensive way to get slave chaff. So, and I don't really have taskmasters in this nation or layout, so I'm not going to be doing that a whole lot. But they are recruitable Holy 3 priests, so they can also claim thrones. A bunch of different various uses for these guys, but I'm not going to have a whole lot of them. They're just going to be too expensive. I did want a lot of cross paths for forging and stuff like that. So, I can throw a Skull of Fire on one of these guys and then get Hesperides very easily. Okay, I remembered my strategy. It works. It works out. And then I picked 2 coast recruitment units. We'll get to the Sirens last, but I picked Cabaros as well. These guys are going to be really great with my Citadel Everywhere strategy. They do cause unrest, but that's going to be less of an impact in my capital because I have free 5 unrest plus 2 from having 25 PD in my capital. So I can stack these guys in my capital, and that will give me resources. Not a lot of resources, but that will get me more resources in order to recruit more Knights of Avalon. They have a forge bonus, so I can use these guys later on to forge thug items. And they have good thug cross paths. They can get Earth 2, which will get them Earth boots, which can get me to Earth 3. They have Fire and Earth, which can get me which can get me firebrands and charcoal shields. They have Air Earth, which also can get me, like I mentioned before, stone birds and stuff like that. And Water Earth, I'm not particularly familiar with as a cross path for forging, but I'm sure there's good stuff in there. And they're relatively cheap, so that's great. Lastly, Sirens. These guys are Oceania's unit, and you really don't see Oceania in a lot of games. They are pretty underpowered, but because of that, not a lot of people understand how Sirens work. Sirens are sort of assassins, but not really. They have a special mechanic, and we're going to jump into a game to show you why and how that works. Now, they're shape changers, so on land they are flying seagulls with women's heads, and they have air-water crosspath. Underwater, they shape change into a full amphibious unit with Water 2. In addition to that, they're Chaos Recruitment 10, which means that they are 10 gold cheaper for every level of Chaos that you have in your Dominion, which means if you have Chaos 3 in your Dominion, these guys cost 100 gold and are 9 research points for 100 gold. They can forge their own owl quills, which I probably won't do a whole lot of because these air randoms can forge owl quills for 4 gems, but you spam owl quills on these guys and they are great researchers. Once you've got them researching in your forts, then you have their secondary skill, which also allows you to have a lot of fun with them in terms of turtling up. So don't care about this. We'll have a different pretender and whatnot. So let's get in to this guy first. So we're going to throw these commanders here, and we'll just make a bunch of commanders so I can showcase how exactly Sirens work. The opening strategy that I wanted to try out is that because my capital fort is a better fort, it's a fortified city instead of just a fort, or a castle I should say, it is actually more expensive to build a great walled city, which is the equivalent of a citadel. It's 600 gold, which is a whole palisade unto itself, and I don't start with 600 gold on my first turn. So that kind of threw my strategy for a loop a little bit. Not entirely sure how I'm going to deal with that. I could either just do nothing or recruit another Magister and lead my troops around with that. Maybe one more Knight of Avalon. No, see that, well, it might work out. So it's going to depend. It's going to depend on where my start is. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one because I haven't really decided how I'm going to do that. quite yet, but that did sort of mess me up. So now, yeah, I can't even do that. Okay, so we're probably gonna have to drop the knight on our first turn of recruitment. Oh well. Okay. Heavy cav. I might be able to take this. If there are like 4 heavy cav there, then my units can actually take 4 heavy cav. Let's try it. Let's just try it and see, because why not? We're actually gonna also go ahead and do this so we can get a couple sirens out. Okay, no, there were 15 heavy cav there, so never mind. We cannot take 15 heavy cav. Okay, let's just go ahead and get some more sirens out. And we can make a citadel now. And we'll move these guys here, and we'll get a bunch of commanders. So I'm just going to throw some commanders into that province so that we can demonstrate how the Siren Mechanic works. Host, host, host. Okay, so we got a bunch of sirens here. Now, let's be assuming that they were researching this whole time. And we see somebody show up on our border, or even show up in our capital, because again, all of our forts are going to be coastal forts. Basically, the way this mechanic works is that on any province that is a coastal province, you can lure an enemy commander. What happens by luring an enemy commander, and this will happen in their stealthy flying bird form, on a coastal province, not an underwater province. But what happens when you lure an enemy commander is that you make a check against that commander's morale. I'm pretty sure it's their morale. And if they fail that check, nothing happens. Or sorry, if they pass that check, nothing happens. If they fail that check, then they die. And there is no chance to fight it. There are no bodyguards that can help you with that. No items that help you with that other than morale items, having very, very high morale. And also, because you die by drowning, you can have, if I'm correct, we're gonna hide, and then we'll stick a ring of water breathing or something on these guys. Okay, so I haven't actually tested that, but we're gonna just lure commander with all these guys and see what happens. So he drowned. Failed, 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 and failed. So we killed one of their commanders. And from his perspective, he just disappeared. And this is what you're going to see. He managed to resist a song. So let's do that another turn and see what happens. The more you get, obviously, the better chance you have of doing that. Aha, I see. So if you can breathe underwater, you actually get to fight them underwater in the coastal province. Good to know, and also kind of cool. But yeah, like I said, underwater, these guys have the amphibious shape. They still have awe, and they can go up to water 3 with water power. I should probably script these guys. So basically, if you can breathe underwater, you get an assassination attack. And if you can't, you die. So there you go. That's how lure works. Now you know. I figured I didn't want to... oh, and you get their items. I figured it would be a little bit unfair to spring this on people without them understanding how the mechanic works. So now I made a video. My conscience is clear. And have fun trying to take my castles. Oh, damn it. I lost my temple. No. Or my lab. Anyways, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for that Again, not necessarily in the near future because the game hasn't even started yet, but I hope this answers some questions for you, and have a good one.